Hey guys, what's happening? Dane Smith Corrective Training here. Welcome to another session of Courtyard Mobility. Guys, today we're going to be focusing on lower back tweaks. Again, please guys, if you want to see longer content from these videos, head over to my YouTube page, Dane Smith Corrective Training, and you can get the full coverage of everything that we speak about here in these Courtyard Mob sessions. Right, getting on to today's session. We are going to be speaking regarding lower back tweaks. Okay, so quick one. What all comprises in that lower back? All right, we've got a lot of muscles attaching to that pelvis, attaching to the spine, which all do their job aiding in strength, stability, and movement. Okay, some of the muscles to mention: we have our deep core muscles, we have our erectors, we have our QLs, glutes, hip flexors. Okay, each of them doing a specific job to aid in movement, stability, etc. All right. What happens when one of those guys tweak up? All right, so let's say now we pick up something off the floor, something goes in our lower back, we're not feeling good, and everything kind of changes in the next few hours to days in a compensation pattern. So an example, all right, our quadratus lumborum, small little muscle attaching from the pelvis to the spine and to the 12th rib, all right, tweaks. All right, and now is having to do more work or less work. So say now if we hurt an erector, all right, and a glute, an erector or something like that spasms up, that QL is probably going to have to do a hell of a lot more work to pick up the job of those. Or on the other side of the coin, if the QL tweaks, let's say the hip flexor might have to do more work, the intricate muscles of the core probably have to do more work, the erectors have to do more work. So basically what we're getting at here is compensation patterns occur all around our lower back, okay, our back in general, and can cause pain in all different types and ways. What we need to kind of focus on going into the kind of period following a tweak is how we manage it. All right, so there's two areas of thought. One being rest completely, one being just carry on training. All right, where does the answer quite sit? Okay, so those who rest completely, probably not getting much good out of it. Those who carry on training, probably not getting much good. In my mind, the answer lies smack bang down the middle. Okay, regress on the amount of training volume that you're doing, rest up. Even if you have to take a rest day, do it. It's worth it. Okay, use modalities which might relieve some pain. All right, so I know there's ice, there's heat, etc. And then we have the other side of the coin where it's let me just carry on training. Okay, so you hurt your back, you feel it's not feeling too good, but you're just going to go deadlift or squat anyway, and 9 times out of 10 that's probably not going to do you pretty or pay dividends either. Okay, so smack bang down the middle allows us to regress the load, reduce the intensity, take a rest day as we need, use modalities to help us feel better. Then keep on moving, all right? Do adapted strength training, core stabilization, mobility, all right? All those which keep the body moving and can bring stability around those joints to help find that equilibrium and balance, okay? So a while or way back when they came up with an acronym called the RICE protocol, rest, ice, compression, elevation. All right, that was generally if you had to hurt yourself and you had to follow a means of management for that injury, RICE was generally your go-to. However, that's been outdated, okay, and now we have a new acronym which we can use for managing injuries, and that is the POLICE. Okay, police, and at the end you can add a D in at the end. I'll explain that now. So police standing for protection, all right, protection of that joint. So say now if you're hurting your lower back, you're going to protect it by not going and yanking things off the floor or doing movements which will compromise that area further. Okay, so you will protect the area, all right. Be careful with your movement, not do anything strenuous for that lower back. Protection. All right, next up, O and L can be put together as one, optimal loading. All right, guys, and this is the really important part of this acronym, optimal loading. Okay, so if you hurt yourself deadlifting or squatting, all right, that means potentially taking a rest day or so, but then getting back to some variation of whatever movement hurt you and what movements you want to get back to. Okay, so if you were squatting 60, getting back the optimal loading for that injury period now might be just doing an air squat, or seated onto a chair and standing up again. It might be a split squat. It might be any form of variation in which you are not feeling that excess pain, however you are still moving that joint. Okay, another example being, let's say you had to hurt a knee. All right, you would obviously in that period back off on the load and the volume and everything that made the knee sore, and that does make the knee sore, and you would regress it to something that you can still keep moving but isn't going to make the knee feel worse. All right, so that's optimal loading. The next bit is ice. Okay, guys, ice, as soon as an injury happens, icing is probably going to limit that first stage healing. So I'd say maybe back off on that ice. If you have a TENS machine, a stims machine, go for it, use those stims machines. And then yes, ice will be used just for that kind of pain dulling, getting rid of that pain and just feeling a little bit better. All right, next up, in the RICE protocol, the C would have stood for compression, and we are changing that now in this police acronym to core strength. Yes, you can still use compression if you like, but core strength, and that's so important, especially in this low back situation. So too often we get so involved with wanting to do strength training, big deadlifts, big squats, big benches, lots of pull-ups, everything that focuses on strength. And when we hurt our backs, it's actually important just to go back to the basics, and that is that intrinsic core stabilization and core strength. Okay, guys, so don't mess around with that. Stick with it. Okay, go back to the basics, get that core strength done. Next up, education. Okay, education is important because we'll hurt our backs and then people will say, oh, but where do I go to from here? How do I do this? Is it a good idea to do that? Do some reading, look up some stuff. Hell, watch these types of videos. Okay, educate yourself on how to manage yourself going forward. Next up, and this is where we're adding in that D, is diet. When we hurt ourselves, we have inflammation, we have pain, we have changes in our body, which a good diet can actually help. Okay, so you hurt yourself, potentially a little bit more calories, avoiding foods that cause inflammation. It's a good idea. So diet, very important when we hurt our backs. All right, guys, now that we've explained the whole kind of tweaks and protocols and acronyms, we're going to go through a couple exercises that you can adapt, or should I say adapted exercises for when you do tweak your back. All right, so what we're going to go through is a deadlift variation, a squat variation, and then a baseline core activation. Okay, so for the deadlifts, you hurt yourself deadlifting but you want to get back to deadlifting. My best exercise that I'll go to, especially in a lockdown period, is the banded hinge. Check it out. Okay, so I have a band attached just to whatever you can find. I've got it against a trelly gate. From here, I come into this position, nice and tall, hips through. I slowly hinge forward and come through again. Alright, slowly hinge forward, squeeze your bum at the top. Alright, if you want to hold at the bottom slightly, you can do so. Alright, nice deadlift variation. Okay, next up, what we can do for our squats. All right, guys, we hurt ourselves squatting. What can I do to squat that won't hurt my lower back? Great idea, use your split squat. Okay, split squat, great exercise, keeps that torso nice and straight, and won't put excessive pressure that a normal squat would. Check it out. So, if this is our normal squat, alright, split squat, we're splitting in the split position here. All we are doing is descending down. Look how nice and straight I am. Okay, if you want to add some weights at the side, you can do so. Straight down, straight up, straight down, straight up. Alright, last up, we're going to go through a basic core exercise. Okay, similar to a bird dog exercise, a little bit different. Right. So, if this is our bird dog exercise, all right, let's simplify that, okay? What we're going to be doing, lift one hand and opposite knee, balance, and swap. Lift hand, knee, balance. Okay, big breaths in and out. Balance, balance. If you want to make this a little bit tougher, come up onto your hands and knees, or come off your hands and your knees, and just balance. Okay. A little bit tougher variation there. That's working intrinsic core, multifidus especially, very important, spinal stabilization. All right, guys, so a little bit of extra talking on this hella hot day here in Durban, SA.